So my name is Tony McCann, and this is a QQI Level 4 Door Security Skills assessment. And the assessment is taking place on the 29th of the 6th, 2020. And could you just introduce yourself and tell me what you're here to demonstrate?
Sure. My name is Tony O'Brien. I'm doing a Door Security Procedures program with ICSE, and I'm here to demonstrate the requesting a person to leave a licensed premises using the REACT method.
So you're required to complete a 5-minute skills demonstration to display your ability to deal with a challenging situation in the security capacity. The skills being assessed in this demonstration will include appropriate initial approach and body language, appropriate communication skills, the correct use of security procedures, safety awareness, and the appropriate liaison with other staff. This will be a tutor-led skills demonstration where I will ask you to demonstrate your response to a range of questions that I will ask you. So you'll be given the following scenario. You're a security operative working in an entertainment venue. You have just witnessed a person behaving in an intoxicated way, and you are going to remove that person. You are required to demonstrate the various stages and skills involved in performing this task. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
So I'm going to ask you a number of questions then, Tony. So can you explain to me why you're asking this person to leave the premises?
Okay, so as part of the role within the venue, we would have to identify people who are intoxicated. So we would be observing the crowd for indicators that a person might be intoxicated. For example, we might have identified that they were off balance or slurring their speech, or their eyes were glazed over, or their behaviour towards other people might have become inappropriate or becoming aggressive or violent. So we'll be looking for those indicators starting to join together, which would tell us that a person is getting towards intoxication and requires further monitoring or requires intervention.
Okay, and then can you describe for me what preparation you have made prior to this task?
Sure. So once a person came to our attention as potentially requiring some more monitoring or requiring an intervention, I would get on my radio, request support, give them a description of the person, the location that they're in, ask for another person to come towards me to either get a second opinion or just as a witness, and make sure that the other members of the security team were aware that we were watching a potential risk or hazard.
And then can you explain to me some of the risks of removing the person and the safety measures that you would use? Sure.
So some of the risks involved, we don't know how the person is going to react to being approached. They could become aggressive or violent towards us. So there's a risk of being assaulted in that. There's also a risk that the person may be hurt in trying to remove them because they are possibly unstable or having consumed alcohol or other substances that we don't know about. So there may be medical issues. The person might have friends or colleagues with them who might try to intervene. We're working in an environment that's filled with weapons, potential weapons, such as bottles and glasses and chairs. And there may also be things like biohazard risks or body fluid risks or even mental health risks that we're not aware of with the person. Some of the measures we would use to kind of mitigate that will be, I would make sure that I have plenty of support and colleagues with me, depending on who the person is. We would use our communication equipment, make sure we have the appropriate PPE, keep a safe distance and stance when we're approaching the person, communicate positively with them, and try to utilize the venue CCTV when we're asking the person to leave.
Okay, and then can you demonstrate with the position you would take up to effect the removal, and why is this the case?
Sure. So as I walk towards the person, I wouldn't walk directly up to the person. What I would try to do is I would try to come around from the side, so I'm kind of offset to the person, standing slightly, potentially at perhaps a 10 o'clock position on the clock. I'd ask my colleague to step to the other side and keep a safer distance from the person as well, slightly further back than I am. I adopt a ready stance. I keep my hands between me and the person. So that means that the person has a route to walk if they choose to. If they become violent, we can step across and stop them, or we can get hands on very quick if we need to, but we're also in a position to step back if we need to and create more distance between us and the person if we need to escape from the situation.
Okay, and then can you demonstrate for me the wording you would use when making the request, and explain why this wording is used?
Sure. So we would use a method called the REACT method. And the first step of REACT is that we would walk up, identify ourselves, and request the person to step outside of us. So it might be something like, we're security, would you mind stepping outside as far as the door so we can have a conversation? If the person wasn't complying or was being resistant to this, we would then move to the next step, which is explain. We would explain to the person why we wanted to step outside. We might use some kind of a ruse, such as, it's very noisy in here. I would like to speak to you out the door where it's quieter. or there's an issue with your behaviour and we need to speak to you at the door about it, but we'd explain clearly the situation to the person. If they were still non-compliant, we would move to the third stage, which is appeal. So we're going to give a person a good option and a bad option and appeal to their better judgment to pick the correct option. So I might say something along the lines of, listen, you don't want to come to the door, I can understand that. However, I need to speak to you. I'd prefer if we walked to the door and talked about it. If you're going to refuse to come to the door, we're going to have to remove you. I prefer if we didn't have to do that, so can you walk to the door with me? The next step then is that we would confirm what option the person's taken, whether they're going to walk with us or they're going to continue to be non-compliant. And based on that, if the person chooses to walk, that's fantastic. If the person remains non-compliant, we move to the final stage, which is T, take action. So take action could be stepping back and asking for further support to physically remove the person, or it could be that we take action if we have enough support there, we take appropriate action ourselves and physically remove the person from there.
Okay, and then can you show me how you would escort the person to the door?
Sure. So if the person does decide to walk, we would adopt a position slightly behind the person. So the person's walking in front of me. I would place my hand here at the back of the person's elbow to stop an arm from lashing out. Maybe not touching them, but in position to prevent. And with my other hand, I'll be pointing the person in the direction I want to go. So I'll be standing next to them, I'll be walking with them, and I'll be pointing the person in the direction I want to go. My colleague will be on the far side in a similar position, but I will be doing the communicating with the person. My colleague is just there as a support to me, and I will escort a person out as far as the door.
Okay, and then can you explain to me how you would hand over the person to other security staff?
Sure. So as we get outside the door, I would confirm with the person that their behaviour is intoxicated and that we are not willing to allow them back inside tonight. As soon as I do that, I would attempt to remove myself from the situation because they have an issue with me, but they don't potentially have an issue with the people at the door. I would brief the guys at the door. This gentleman was standing in bar 2. We identified that he was intoxicated. We've asked him to leave, and either that he has walked or he was non-compliant. We briefed them on the situation, his level of aggression. Once I confirmed that they are happy for me to leave him there, I would remove myself and step back inside and leave the door staff to manage the situation at the front door.
And then can you describe for me how you would respond if the person refused to leave?
Sure. So if the person had refused to leave, we would have escalated the situation further, potentially got a third person in there. So myself and my colleague are going to be involved in a physical intervention, as in physically removing the person using reasonable force. And the third person is going to be there to monitor the person's safety, monitor the route, and make sure bystanders don't get hurt. So we would use standard industry holds, whether they be controls or restraints, remove the person to the front door, control them at the front door. The door staff would then take over our restraints. We could disengage, remove ourselves, give that briefing to whoever's in charge at the door, and remove ourselves from the situation.
Excellent. So that concludes your skills demonstration.